All right, guys. So I've got a few test rides on this thing. It runs great everywhere, off the throttle or off idle, just cruising like, quarter throttle, half throttle, just about any speed. But I noticed that when I would go wide open throttle, that it would just fall on its face. Like it would pull pretty good until it got like kind of through the certain RPM range at wide open throttle, and it would just bleh, and fall on its face. So I'm running a stock exhaust airbox. I've removed the snorkel, and I just did that because on the stock carb I had ground the needle to a different taper, and it ran really well with that setup with the snorkel removed and stock exhaust. But I haven't done really any other performance modifications. But it was just falling on its face, and I wasn't sure if with the 150 main jet, if I was too rich or too lean. I wasn't sure which way to go. The more I thought about it, a lot of the jet kits and different jetting processes for these say you need to open up another hole in the top of the airbox. I assumed that I was just way too rich. So I decided to, I took a screwdriver with me. I left my side cover off here. And I ran it down the highway, somewhere that I could get up wide open throttle safely. And it was running, it'd fall on its face every time I hit wide open throttle. So I pulled over and I pulled the airbox lid off. And when I did that, my problem went away because I had this large hole open that it was able to draw so much more air into. So it leaned it out where it could run good on the 150 main. But I don't have that much room, or I wasn't sure if I had that much room on the top of my airbox to remove that much material. I could run without the side cover on and it wouldn't be that big of a deal. If I was running mostly street, no big deal. But I do occasionally do some water crossings that get fairly deep, and I didn't want to risk sucking water in through this opening. So I want to put this back on. But like I said, I don't know if there's this much area on the top of the airbox. So I grabbed a roll of duct tape and I put two strips of duct tape across here just to block half of the opening, just to see how it ran. I don't notice any differences in running at wide open throttle with just this amount of area open than I did with the entire amount of area open. So this tells me that I can put this back on, and then in the top of the airbox with the snorkel removed, so that amount of area and this amount of area, remove that much material from the top of my airbox. And I should have the same amount of airflow into my airbox. So depending on your mods, you may need a different amount of area. If you're wanting to get into, a flat slide carb just for the throttle response and stuff, but you don't want to mess around with swapping exhausts or opening up the airbox more, you could drop to a smaller main jet. Just be aware that by doing that, there is a potential, depending on what needle and needle jet are in the carb, you may interfere with throttle position mixtures. The main jet only controls wide open throttle when the needle is all the way up. At that point, the only restriction to fuel flowing is the main jet. So if you install a main jet that's too small, that's then going to restrict the fuel for like 3/4 throttle all the way to full throttle, you could get into a scenario where you'd have to start swapping needle or needle jet as well. So I didn't want to do that, and it runs super good with flowing this extra air. So I'm going to modify the top of my airbox. So I think maybe the easiest way is just to kind of trace this shape on here. A little bit of a dirty finger, pressing around the outside of the airbox gives me the shape. And then I know right there and right there. So I can connect a straight line between those two. And so that's how much I need to cut out on top of my airbox. So I can kind of use this as a template, and it was running really good with everything off. Still running really good, but with this entire opening. So if I am able to take a little more area or maybe square this off on top of my airbox, it's not gonna hurt anything. Okay, so I've got I just used a razor and cut the shape out, so I can use either or as a template. Since there's limited area here, I think I'll probably use this. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna kind of enlarge the hole that's here, just so I have a little bit of structure around in the other areas. So this is just a silver Sharpie marker. So yeah, I think that will be about the same amount of area roughly, and I can always take more out. So I will start with that. Okay, so I was gonna use a hot knife to cut this out, but my hot knife wasn't working properly. So I didn't really want to cut this with like any kind of tooth saw because I didn't want all the little crumbles of plastic falling down in there. But at this point, that's all I've got. So I'm gonna use this guy, something that was left in a house that I moved into. It's an old like utility knife handle with some toothed blade in it. So I use it for all kinds of stuff. So I'm gonna use it for this. I've also got my shop vac hose that I'm gonna stuff in here just to kind of capture all of the chips that come off of this. I'll just like fast forward through this part. Okay, so I got the hole cut in the top. Got my airbox access panel back on. I do need to run and see if I can find one of these square nuts and a screw. I lost a square nut and a screw on my test ride, and I also lost a seat bolt. So I need to run to the hardware store, find some of those. It's still pretty chilly out right now this morning, but it's supposed to be up in the 70s today. So run out, grab those things, and come back. All right, guys, so I got it all put back together, and over the weekend I took it for about a 180-mile gravel ride. It performed flawlessly, ran really well. So I'm really happy with tuning. Now, I didn't run long enough to figure out what my fuel capacity or miles per gallon is with the new jetting. I'll do that at some point. I was riding with another group and I didn't want to risk running out of fuel or anything. So if you have a DR650 and you're looking for a good modification to do, I'd highly recommend this Flatslide carb swap. There are pre-made kits from places like ProCycle that comes with everything you need just to throw on, gives you instructions on how to do it. Or if you want to go the route I did and piece together from, find a used carb and get it rebuilt and jetted and do everything. That's kind of the purpose of these videos. If you have any questions or comments, definitely leave them down below. If you didn't see the first 3 parts of this series, go check them out. I'll put links in the description. Anything that I may mention that you may need for this, I'll put those down in the description as well. So until next time, we'll see y'all later.